You, Martha, I'm pretty hungry.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they ordered a lot, because those guys probably eat about 5 or 6 cheeseburgers apiece, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
All right, good for Clemson. Thanks, Brett. Good to see you. Okay, so it is often said that in politics, optics do matter. That, for example, is why the president didn't go to Mar-a-Lago for Christmas or for New Year's this year. It's why then Governor Chris Christie was lambasted for this moment when he went to the beach when there was a government shutdown in New Jersey on the 4th of July. And that is why tonight, perhaps, New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez is under a bit of fire. He went to a beach resort in Puerto Rico amid the longest government shutdown in history. Menendez and 30-plus Democrat lawmakers spent the weekend there on an annual winter retreat. They were joined by 109 of their favorite lobbyists and corporate executives. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum, and this is the story that we start with tonight. So as the Washington Examiner puts it, that is 3.6 lobbyists for each member of the House or the Senate. The itinerary included a meeting with the governor, on business, of course, and Puerto Rico recovery, all, legitimate to discuss, of course. All the meals were provided at this pricey seaside resort. They also had 3 parties for the members and a special performance of the musical Hamilton, which I think they paid for their own tickets for, as the shutdown goes on. It is now the longest in history, 25 days. The president weighed in like this.
I've been here all weekend. A lot of the Democrats were in Puerto Rico celebrating something. I don't know, maybe they're celebrating a shutdown.
All right, so in moments we're going to hear from freshman Congressman Dan Crenshaw, who has some pretty important and unique thoughts on this matter. But first, Rob Schmidt is live in Puerto Rico with the backstory on this whole event this weekend. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Martha. Yeah, beautiful Puerto Rico in January. Not a bad gig. This is more than 30 Democrats, as you said, and their entire families flown down here on a private charter plane with a whole bunch of lobbyists. This is this winter retreat by a Democratic political action committee to lobby for more money for this troubled island territory. Of course, Puerto Rico has had a lot of debt for a number of years now, and then that was exacerbated by that terrible hurricane in 2017, Maria, in September of that year. And a number of meetings took place over this long weekend, but there was a lot of free time too, and you see that evidenced here by the picture of Bob Menendez that's making its way around the internet, and he's there on the beach. Looks like having a good time. Got that golden January tan for a New Jersey senator. And today we caught up with the senator, and he didn't want to talk to us. Check it out.
You could have had hours and hours and hours of meetings if you chose one thing for an hour.
Well, no, I mean, I want to be fair. I want to be fair. I just want to ask you.
Well, you're neither fair nor balanced.
Okay, so we had a whole number of these. We had all of them there in the same place. And a couple of them did want to talk to us. Tony Cardenas and Jerry Nadler were happy to defend the decision to come down here to Puerto Rico and have a pretty nice weekend amidst the government shutdown and all these people that aren't getting paychecks.
A lot of people would say, well, why are these politicians being greased by lobbyists in San Juan on the beach when the government shutdown happened? What do you say to that?
Well, I'll tell you what. It was documented. We allowed press to be there when we had close to a 5-hour hearing when we spoke. We had presentations given to us by the governor of Puerto Rico and his team. We had mayors. We had not-for-profits that have been putting their elbows and their blood, sweat, and tears into helping people survive in Puerto Rico since Hurricane Maria.
And to their defense, these Democrats did have a lot of meetings. The day today was pretty packed. They had, I think, 6.5 hours of meetings yesterday on a Sunday. So it was a busy schedule, but there was also free time, and now they're off back to Washington already. They took a 4:45 private charter back to D.C. Martha, back to you.
Rob, thank you very much. Here now, Geraldo Rivera, Fox News correspondent at large, and Ed Rendell, former Pennsylvania governor and former Democratic National Committee chairman. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to have both of you with us tonight. Geraldo, let me start with you. What do you think about the Puerto Rico thing? Business or boondoggle?
Well, I think they went to Puerto Rico because that was the only way they could get in to see Hamilton, which is sold out on Broadway. It's the biggest hit in history, making $3 million a week on Broadway. I think the problem with Puerto Rico has some horrible, horrible problems left over from Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria, but the biggest problem is the systemic corruption and ineptitude of the power authority. Now, if they were serious about trying to find the root causes of what is inflicting so much misery on the poorest Puerto Rican people, that would have been a good place to start, not at the beach or, you know, watching Lin-Manuel Miranda, who did a fabulous job, raised $15 million for the cause.
I think he's raised almost $50 million for Puerto Rico. Ed Rendell, I mean, this is a good look. You know, you got the president on the other hand at the White House, and he's saying, I'm here, I'm waiting, come on in, let's negotiate. And it's not that people don't understand that these meetings are scheduled in advance, you know, but it doesn't look good, as we said at the top, given what's going on in these 800,000 federal workers.
Yeah, if it was my decision, I would have postponed the trip. Although the trip had, according to your correspondent, 11 hours of hearings, so that's not exactly a boondoggle. But the key factor here is that the House keeps passing bills that would open up different parts of the government, and Mitch McConnell won't let anybody vote on them. So why would anybody stick around Washington? Mitch McConnell won't let...
But it doesn't include any border security funding, which the president has said is that's his opener. He wants people to come into the White House, sit down at the table, and negotiate. But we know that those bills don't include anything. So right now you've got everybody's backed into their corner, and I think it doesn't fly well with the American people. So let me ask you this, Ed: what is wrong? What do you think about the $5.6 billion? What do you object to in that expenditure, which is really very small?
Well, the expenditure is small. I don't think the wall will do anything, but I like Lindsey Graham's proposal. I think we should reopen the government for a 3-week period or a month period and try to negotiate. And what we should do is try to make some progress on some of the other issues that are involving immigration, like doing something once and for all about the Dreamers, legalizing their status, giving them a path to citizenship. I think if the president and Mitch McConnell were willing to consider that, I think the Democrats would allow.
I mean, I think there's every reason. I mean, Nancy Pelosi said she wouldn't discuss DACA at all, and she doesn't want to give. She says you give $1 for the border fence. And you were in McAllen, Texas, Geraldo, and you said you were pretty surprised by what comprised the group there, and that it was very split.
It is amazing, Martha. McAllen, Texas is an overwhelmingly Latino city of 150,000. And I found, and it's just not my opinion, this is the opinion of people on both sides of the issue, that the town is split right down the middle, 50-50, those who want the wall and those who are opposed to it. Now, I have to say that in McAllen, in 1 month, construction will start on a border wall that is already funded. Some of the same Democrats who are now opposed to even negotiating for more moral reasons the funding for the wall, the $5.6 billion, already voted for it last March in the omnibus spending bill. They voted on 84 miles of border wall, 25 miles of which will be on top of a flood levee off the Rio Grande, and construction will start next month. So where is the morality now that didn't exist then? It seems very, very disingenuous.
All right, before I let you go, Ed, should they argue to have that taken down, to not spend that money now that they're against it?
No, I think this whole issue is a red herring. I think if there are some things, some places on the border that lend itself to a wall or a steel slat.
Exactly.
That's exactly what the president said.
But I think the Democrats have every right to demand progress on some of the more important issues. Like what
you know who's suffering? The 1.6 million dreamers. They're the ones who are suffering. They're suffering more than the federal workers. They're suffering more than the 800,000 federal workers. The federal workers will get paid, but those dreamers that Governor, you I know sincerely care about. You care about them. The president has indicated, has given every signal that he will give them a path to legitimacy if the Democrats support him or back him. Some kind of compromise on the wall. You don't like 5.6 billion? Pick a number.
Well, it looks like everybody's back from the beach, as Rob Schmidt said. So let's get down to business here and see what they can figure out. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Ed Rendell, Geraldo Rivera, great to see both of you. Thank you, gentlemen. My next guest is a freshman congressman, along with about 70 other lawmakers. He is foregoing his congressional salary until they figure this whole thing out and reopen that part of the government. Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw joins me now. Good to see you, sir. Thank you very much for being here.
Good to be here with you.
Well, what's your reaction to this Puerto Rico trip? Big deal or not a big deal?
Well, it sounds like they had a lot of fun, you know, but they've also been talking a lot about the plight that federal workers see themselves in. And now they're not wrong about that, but if we're going to talk about that, then I don't know if these excursions to Puerto Rico are really the right way to handle that. We should be negotiating. Okay, Democrats said $0 for any kind of barriers on the border, you know, weeks ago, and they're still at $0. That's not negotiating. The president's plan it was initially a long border wall. He's come down to about 234 miles of border wall. All right, we've gone from 25 billion to about 5.7 billion for any kind of physical barrier on the border. This is very reasonable. This is a mixed, holistic approach to border security, and it's what we need to be doing.
I mean, you're one of the new guys on the block there. Are people pressuring the rest of your party to, the rest of the Democrat Party and the rest of the members on the Hill to say, come on, let's come together. Let's all work. Let's show up every day. Let's work on this until we can find some sort of deal.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's fundamentally what the American people want, and it's certainly what a lot of federal workers want who are not getting paid right now. Especially like, you know, I have an airport right near my district, and a lot of TSA folks are not getting paid. It's why I wanted to forego my pay and withhold it until they get paid as well. I understand what that's like. We need to negotiate on this, and as a freshman class, we've started to reach out to our freshmen on the Democrat side and say, you know, what are you willing to give on this? Because I mean, you guys, you know, behind
closed doors. What's their response? What do they say?
We're not hearing much a whole lot yet. You know, it's the word wall that triggers them. They're like, you know, well, then let's call it physical barriers. Let's call it fencing.
Yeah, you said you think it's silly.
Right, it's semantics, you know, and any security expert will look at this and say, you really need a holistic approach, and physical barriers are a very obvious part of that, all right? They mitigate the flow of people from point A to point B, and of course you need more border patrol agents, you need technology, you need drones, you need the sensors, and in some places you simply can't put a physical barrier. We realize
Seems
that.
like all sides, everybody agrees on all that stuff. I mean,
yeah.
You know, which makes it more apparent than ever to the American people that it's ridiculous that they can't come together on it. Lindsey Graham suggested that maybe the president should float a deal to reopen the government for a few weeks, but make it a short period of time. And if you can't work it out in that period of time, then, you know, it's another shutdown. The president's holding firm, though. He doesn't want to do that. Do you agree with the president or with Lindsey Graham?
Well, I just have to live in the reality that I live in. If the president's not willing to budge on that, then he's not willing to budge. And he has good reason. You know, there's no indication that the Democrats have been willing to negotiate at all. And there's no indication that if we had another continuing resolution that we would somehow get to an agreement and be able to negotiate some kind of funding for physical barriers. So, you know, the president has a good point here.
So the president, there's also been a suggestion that he might use some of the money that was allocated for Puerto Rico to build the wall, because they're, you know, beating the bushes to find the money that's already been allocated in a way that they can move it over. Would you approve of that?
It's definitely not what I want to see, because listen, if you can use Puerto Rico money, you can also use Hurricane Harvey relief funding, which is very important to us in my district in Houston. So what we would like to see, again, is Democrats coming to the table. This is a highly reasonable solution, and there's no reason why we can't solve this from Congress. This should not be something that the executive himself has to solve.
I'm curious what it's like for you to see how all the sausage is made now. You've been there a few weeks, right? I mean, are you disillusioned already, or are you hopeful? Or, you know, how do you take all this in, given, you know, you were a Navy SEAL? I mean, you don't mess around. Yeah. You get stuff done, everybody chips in, and you complete your mission.
Right, and that's how this should be too. Now, I don't think I came up here so idealistic that I thought it was going to be easy. And I was mentally prepared for this. I knew what I was getting into, and you know what? It tells me every day that this is exactly why I came here in the first place, because we're making the right argument. We are on the right side of this, and we would like our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to just work with us. We're just asking you to work with us. Let's hear some proposals, and we will counter back, and that's how good government should run.
Good luck with that. No, I mean it. I mean it.
Thank you.
Congressman Dan Crenshaw, great to see you tonight. Thanks for being here as always.
Always great to be with you. Thanks.
I don't know what she went through, but to survive it and to get out of it, and to beat him in his own game and to survive and get out of there, I mean, wow.
Wow is right. The joy of the Kloss family. They now have Jamie home after she was held captive in a dirty basement by a sick man for 88 days. The suspect, we saw him today for the first time too. He was in court. He's charged with 2 counts of first-degree homicide for the murder of Jamie's parents and 1 count of kidnapping. Jake Thomas Patterson reportedly spotted the young teenager waiting for the school bus one morning, and he decided she would be the girl that he would take. He plotted her abduction, according to what the prosecutors are saying, trying twice and then coming back a 3rd time to her house when it was quiet and the moment was right. He held her in this remote cabin, seen here in photos obtained by the Daily Mail, until her magnificently brave escape last week. The case drawing parallels to that of Amanda Berry, Gina De Jesus, and Michelle Knight, who, remember this story in Cleveland? They spent nearly a decade as prisoners in a Cleveland house of horrors before they, too, managed to summon their courage and escape in 2013. Joining me now exclusively is Lily Rose Lee, formerly known as Michelle Knight, the author of Life After Darkness, Find Healing and Happiness After the Cleveland Kidnappings. Lily, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's good to have you on the program.
It's a pleasure.
First, I just want to ask you, first of all, your name was Michelle Knight. Why did you change it, and how did you choose your new, beautiful name?
It was a new beginning, a journey to a new life full of happiness and love.
And how did you choose the names?
Interesting. I love peace lilies. Peace lilies means love and pure of heart.
And you have a coffee that's Lily's Ray of Hope. That is it's charity coffee to help women and girls who have suffered abuse.
Yes.
Just remind everybody, just in the shorthand version, what happened to you?
Shorthand version, oh my gosh. I went through 11 years of torture by a man that was my best friend's father. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen to me when I first walked into that house. I just thought it was my best friend's father giving me a ride home. Little did I know I was going to spend 11 years in his house, chained to the basement in multiple areas of his house, and being abused every single day of my life.
Lily, when you look at where Jamie was, I'm sure it just brings back a lot of memories to you. What would you say to her? And will you, because I know you want to help women who've been through what you've been through, will you eventually, when the time is right, reach out to her?
Yes, I most definitely would be happy to reach out to her, or her to reach out to me. I would love that tremendously.
How do you, give us sort of the baby steps? She's home, thank God. She's with her dog, she's with her aunts. She has to get over the murder of her parents. And according to these reports, she was hiding with her mother in the bathroom. She saw her mother murdered before she was dragged out of there. She has a tremendous amount to deal with.
It's going to be a tremendous struggle for her. It's going to be really hard for her to cope with her parents being gone now and not being able to give them a hug or be able to tell them I love you. It's really difficult. And I know her parents loved her so much. And they didn't deserve what they went through. Nobody ever does. And for the people that are in her life right now, just take time, let her heal, let her do the things that she needs to do to make it a happy journey through her healing process. Make sure that, they don't push, they don't make her talk. Let her talk on her own free will. And, they will, she will come to them. She will be there, with open arms, ready to talk.
Lily, thank you. You're an inspiration, and no one should have to go through what you went through and what Jamie went through. And we just thank God that you're alive and that she's alive and that you have an after to celebrate and to enjoy.
Yes, when I first heard about this story, I was so overwhelmed with tears of joy, knowing that she's finally safe and back home with her family.
It's incredible.
It's not in the arms of a person that would hurt her.
Thank God. Lily, thank you very much. Great to see you tonight. Thanks for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So tonight there are questions that are coming up about the New York Times and Washington Post bombshells over the weekend. What exactly was new in them? And what do they tell us about what ABC now says may be an anticlimactic Mueller report? GOP Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel here on what is exactly going on, coming up next.
People who are closest to what Mueller has been doing, who have interacted with the special counsel, caution me that this report is almost certain to be anticlimactic.
The whole thing is a hoax. It's a big hoax, and it's very bad for our country. So what happened with the FBI? I have done a great service for our country when I fired James Comey, because he was a bad cop and he was a dirty cop, and he lied. He really lied.
Strong words today from the president and new questions tonight about the two reports that were dubbed bombshells basically over the weekend, both pushing the narrative that President Trump may be a secret Russian agent, while simultaneously saying in the Times report in paragraph 9 that no actual evidence had emerged to support that FBI concern. The reports in the New York Times and the Washington Post attributed to current and former U.S. officials largely traveled over ground that we have seen in many of these stories over the course of the past year, that some in the FBI were outraged by James Comey's firing and that they then began digging deeper. Former Trump lawyer John Dowd talked to Brian Kilmeade today and said that he thought that the Times piece made the FBI look bad. Listen to this.
It appears that they were all in it together. I mean, Rosenstein, Comey, Mueller, McCabe, the whole crowd, and that they were out to get this president no matter what. I don't think they sincerely believed anything about Russia. I take the New York Times article as an admission of their bad behavior.
So joining me now, RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel. Ronna, thank you for coming in tonight. Good to see you. What was your reaction to these big stories? And the other one I should point out is that the president went to great lengths to conceal his conversations with Vladimir Putin. He wanted the notes that were from the interpreter and the linguist. He asked not to say anything about what he had heard or she had heard in that meeting.
Well, first of all, John Dowd, I completely agree with him. This article shows that the FBI has been out to get this president, and there was no there, just like there's going to be no there in the Mueller investigation. Nobody's shown any collusion. It is this musical chairs of how do we hurt this president week after week. There's chaos in the White House, collusion with Russia. What else? Unfit for office. They're always putting something new because they don't want to talk about the results of what this president and this administration's put forward for the American people. Jobs, wages up, all the good things that are happening.
What about the Putin story? That they wanted he wanted the interpreter's notes, that he didn't want to share with other people in the administration what they had talked about. That seems a little weird.
Well, first of all, the president has had multiple meetings with many world leaders that have been off the record. He has these calls, but he has been plagued with leaks, and Kellyanne addressed that today. He doesn't want to have leaks from these important meetings. He needs to have the latitude to meet with these world leaders and talk about issues of great importance. But let's not forget, this administration has been incredibly tough on Russia. They've had more sanctions than the Obama administration did. They expelled 60 diplomats. They've sold lethal weapons to the Ukraine. This is not an administration that's been weak on Russia.
Those are fair points. I think it's interesting. Elliot Engel came out and said the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee is ditching the terrorism subcommittee, and instead it's going to be basically an investigative arm for Trump foreign affairs. You've got Cummings, Congressman Cummings saying, all I'm saying is we got to hit the ground running, not flying. And I put that together with what Jonathan Karl said about the potential that it could be an anticlimactic report. Are these guys all gearing up because if it's not as much as they thought it was going to be, that it's going to give them more food to feed these investigations?
Well, heaven forbid they work on behalf of the American people that they were elected to represent, who are now seeing this economic boom, that are feeling better, that jobs are coming back. They want to spend the next 2 years investigating and obstructing this president like they've done the past 2 years. And let's see how that works for the American people. I mean,
what do you say to those
ridiculous.
who say, well, that's what Republicans did to Hillary Clinton? It was all Benghazi and emails all the time.
Absolutely. And Benghazi was a serious issue. I mean, let's look. We had an ambassador who was killed at an annex without security, and they called it something that happened because of a video and didn't talk about the terrorism aspects and the 30,000 deleted emails. President Trump has done nothing to that effect. He's been tough on Russia. He's turned our economy around. He's strengthened our military. This is a president who's getting things done. And Democrats have done nothing for 2 years, and now they're going to do nothing for the next 2 years except obstruct this president.
2020. It's all coming at you. Ronna, thank you. Good to see you tonight. So here's a good question. Do women belong in combat? The debate that is about to happen, you do not want to miss after this. The heated debate over the role of women on the battlefield. Up for debate once again this evening after a Wall Street Journal op-ed asserted women have no place in combat units. Here's a quote from it. The Obama-era policy of integrating women into ground combat units is a misguided social experiment that threatens military readiness and wastes resources in the service of a political agenda. The next defense secretary should end it. Here now, the author of that op-ed, Heather McDonald. She is also author of The Diversity Delusion, and Amber Smith, a former Army combat pilot who did tours in Iraq and Afghanistan and is now a fellow with the Independent Women's Forum. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here tonight. Amber, let me start with you. What's your gut reaction to hearing that quote from Heather McDonald's piece?
Well, I thought this op-ed was really bizarre. I thought it was extremely out of touch with the modern military and how much progress has been made with integrating women into these combat positions. There's been massive strides in the post-9/11 wars in terms of where women started serving and where they are today in terms of combat. And so I almost thought this was on line with victim blaming, where she seemed to focus on everything. Some of the problems that are in the military have to do with the presence of women, which is factually not true. So I think that when it comes down to it, for too long, this issue of women serving in combat has been romanticized, especially from people who oppose it. They act as though suddenly the infantry and special operations are going to have 50% of women serving in the ranks, and that's not true. The percentage is going to be absolutely small. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's all that's going to be able to make it or even want to try out. So this isn't suddenly there's going to be a split 50-50 men and women serving in these ground roles.
Let me give Heather a chance
it's
to
going to happen
respond.
gradually.
Heather, what's your response to that? She said your piece was bizarre.
Well, what's bizarre is the idea that introducing women into ground combat units, which entails carrying massive amounts of equipment for months on end, is a way to increase the lethality of the military. I don't think anybody would seriously put forward that proposition. This is about gender equity. It's a political agenda.
Do you know that lots of men
we have
can't
already
meet that
seen,
standard?
we have, of course, but we have not kept the standards as is in order to get women into ground combat. As soon as that order came down from Obama's Secretary of Defense, every branch started crafting so-called gender-neutral standards, which are change standards. Here's an example. The famed infantry officer course in the Marines has now changed its grueling combat endurance test, its one-day opening test, which required officers to carry 80-pound packs for miles on end to scale 80-foot ropes. It used to be a pass-fail requirement. They've now changed it to an unscored exercise that's really simply a bonding experience that has no effect on your ultimate grade in the infantry officer course.
I got to let Amber respond, and then I got to go, but I'm going to have you back because we didn't have enough time. Go ahead, Amber, and then we'll do it again.
Which is how it was prior to 2012. They've had a massive attrition rate for that example that she just gave with the Marines, with men as well, and most of the services have increased in terms of how difficult their physical fitness tests are. The Air Force has already gone to mission-specific physical fitness tests. The bottom line is that there has to be a mission standard, not a gender standard. We want the best person for the job, whether it's a man or a woman, and women should be able to try, and if they want to serve their country and defend our national security, then they should be able to do so.
All right, Amber and Heather, we've got to leave it there, but we will continue this
battered.
debate another time.
It's going to destroy combat cohesion by introducing inevitable sexual attraction into these close units.
That is
only
ridiculous.
purpose is to destroy
all right.
them.
We're going to have you back. We're going to have you back. Heather McDonald, thank you. Amber Smith, thank you, and thank you for your service. Well, we're going to pick that up. All right. Coming back, though, tonight. Next, she sounded the alarm on bigwig Democratic donor Ed Buck after the first man turned up dead in his apartment. She predicted this would happen again. She is speaking out tonight against her own party when we come back.